The city never really slept. It only pretended to rest so that other things could move freely beneath the noise. On a rainy night in Manhattan, a thin woman named Mara followed a rumor into a narrow alley where a brass door sat half hidden behind steam and peeling posters. She pressed her forehead against the cold metal and listened. A faint rhythm, like a heartbeat, pulsed through the wall. She remembered her brother, who had vanished 2 weeks earlier. She remembered the message left on his phone that said only one word: "Come." She took a breath and pushed the door open. The foyer smelled of iron and old books. A spiral staircase wound down into a ribbed stone cavity. Velvet curtains hung heavy and dark, like bruises. At the bottom of the stairs stood an old man with silver hair. He smiled, but his eyes didn't follow. He said her name as if he'd been waiting for decades. She stepped down because waiting and doors felt the same to her now. Below, a vaulted hall opened into a room lined with portraits. Faces of long-dead cult members stared down with eyes that seemed alive. Their skin was pale and glossy like bone that had been polished too long. The room smelled of red wine, citrus, and something metallic. Figures in black robes circled a long wooden table. At its head sat a woman with hair like raven wings. Her voice was silk when she spoke. She said, "The ritual has a hunger, and that hunger is not cruel." Mara felt nausea and fascination fight in her chest. At the table, she found her brother. He looked smaller than she remembered, softer. He reached out and touched her face like a child asking for forgiveness. His eyes were glassy, devoted. He whispered, "Stay, and you'll remember why you came." Mara tried to pull away, but a hand closed around her wrist, and the room began to tilt. They brought out a chalice carved with vines and teeth. The leader raised it like a crown. She told a story about the city and its hidden veins. She promised strength, belonging, and the end of loneliness. Her voice threaded through the air like a spider's silk. Someone started to chant, softly at first. The rhythm swelled until it matched a single pounding human heartbeat. A cup was offered to Mara. Inside, a liquid dark as rubies. Her throat tightened. She thought of her brother, the lighthouse in the storm. She thought of every question that never found an answer. Her fingers closed on the cup. Her brother smiled and mouthed one word: "Home." She raised it to her lips. The first taste was cold, alive, and it brought visions. She saw subway tunnels like arteries, rooms behind rooms where people whispered their truths into glass. She saw the leader standing on a rooftop at dawn, tracing the sky with a knife. Laughter echoed, tasting of iron. Her mind split open like a wound. Names she never knew filled her head, and then came hunger. A young acolyte leaned close and whispered a secret. He said the cult was born from a man dying alone in a hospital room who made a pact with the city itself. He said they fed on blood and loneliness, on secrets and the quiet griefs people hid in mailboxes and closets. He said the drink sharpened loyalty like a blade. Mara felt the truth of it settle cold inside her. Then, something shifted. A laugh, sharp and high, came from the stairwell. The portraits turned their heads slowly. The silver-haired man appeared at the top, a camera hanging from his neck. He'd been watching longer than anyone could guess. He said, "They are being watched." And the room cracked open. Masks slipped. Eyes turned feral. Panic spread like spilled ink. Chaos followed. Some members shielded the leader, others froze, remembering their own names for the first time. Mara grabbed her brother and pulled him toward the stairs. He resisted, whispering, "Please stay. The city will forgive you." Mara shook her head and shouted, "Run!" They burst into the alley. Rain stabbed their faces. For a moment, she thought they had escaped. Then the leader stepped from the shadows between two dumpsters. Older now, eyes ancient, teeth small, perfect knives. She said, "The city remembers its debts." She lifted a hand. The brother froze. He turned, eyes hollow, and in the leader's voice he said, "Come home." Mara remembered a story of a lock that only opens from the inside. She screamed into the rain, not in fear, but defiance. She grabbed a shard of glass from a broken bottle and slashed her forearm. Pain flared sharp and immediate. Blood spilled warm and honest into the puddle. The brother's head snagged. For a heartbeat, he was himself again. The leader's laughter shattered like glass. Mara pressed her bloody hand to her brother's lips. The act was messy, human, and real. For one breath, his eyes cleared. He saw her, mouthed her name, half apology, half love. The cult hissed around them. The leader moved like a storm of black silk. But in that breath of pain and rain and light, they chose. Mara dragged him into the street, into the crowd, and the city swallowed them whole. Days later, on a rooftop at dawn, Mara looked out at the city like a map of mouths. In her hand was a note from her brother. 2 words: "Forgive me." She let it fall into the wind and watched it twist like a dying bird. Somewhere below, a window lit up. A figure watched her silhouette and smiled. The cult waited. The city breathed. And Mara kept moving, because movement was the only way to live a life that didn't belong to them. The story didn't end. It just learned to hide better. On nights when rain begins to fall slow and the subway hums like a buried heart, Mara hears the chant inside her bones. She speaks the names of the lost into the dark and holds tight to the scar on her arm, a mark that reminds her what it means to choose blood or to choose love.